Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Taylor Shaw. Thank you for watching my channel. Today I'm going to talk about how you know if it's intuition versus a fear. So everyone has their own way of developing intuition and the way they receive intuition, but for me, I wanted to share some stories with you to explain how I get my intuition and how in the times of my life when it's really been the most crucial, it didn't come with any fear at all. And so back in 2001, I was actually had my daughter who was going to be 1 year old, and my son, I was pregnant with my son, and I was living out in Southern California, and I made arrangements to fly back to the Washington, D.C. area for my daughter's birthday, which is September 1st. So I scheduled the flight, and I was going to use miles. And back then, when you used airline flight miles credit, you could book the flight and basically kind of bank it, hold on to it for a few days, and you had like 3 days to actually confirm it. And the reason I did that is I was trying to coordinate the flight with my husband at the time, so we could fly out together and he would be paying for his flight. So I tentatively booked the flight for September 11th, 2001, and which obviously pretty much most of you know is 9/11. And so I scheduled the flight, and then it was to fly out of Dulles. And the flight, I kept hearing a voice say, change your flight, change your flight. And it didn't say there was anything dangerous going on. It was just like, change your flight, change your flight. It was just, and it wasn't anyone else's voice. That's something that people often wonder. It was just my voice saying, change your flight. So finally, the voice wouldn't go away. So I changed my flight from September 11th to September 12th. And I told myself, well, I'll have an extra day with my family. But my anniversary was on the 13th. So I was feeling kind of bad about it because with the time change and being pregnant, I was just kind of worried about being tired for celebrating my anniversary with my husband. So anyway, I did end up changing it. And then on the day that, 9/11 happened, I'm standing there in the living room with my mom, and my sister calls and says, turn on the TV. There's been a terrorist attack on the Twin Towers in New York, and I watched that. And then I basically kind of went into shock. I was like, oh my God, I was supposed to fly today. And then later on, fast forward, found out that my flight, the one I was originally scheduled to be on, was the flight I would always fly home from Dulles to LA, straight shot, first thing in the morning, American Airlines Flight 77. And that is the one that purportedly crashed into the Pentagon that same day. So when that happened, and I, thought that I could have been on that flight and could have been killed on that flight, I really went into shock. And I really just was asking myself, oh my gosh, was that luck? Was that intuition? Was that protection, angelic protection? What was that? And it really pushed me to go on to study intuitive development, because I've been getting downloads with clients. I was hearing information about why they had problems and past lives and deeper hidden things for why they were stuck with a problem. But this really just pushed me to want to develop it purposefully. So I started studying with someone who taught intuitive development. And that story, really shaped my life as far as wanting to make my intuition purposeful instead of random. And I think everyone gets random hits with their intuition, but most of us want it to be on tap, purposeful, and reliable, and we feel confident in it. So, part of that is really you just learning to trust it and step into that trust. So, the second story I'm going to tell you today was a couple years ago. I was driving back from a trip from Charlotte, North Carolina, back to Charleston, South Carolina. And it was only like maybe the second time I'd ever been to Charlotte. So I wasn't really familiar with the roads or anything. But I left the hotel early in the morning and I wanted coffee. And so I thought, well, I'll just find a Starbucks or something with my little GPS on the side of the road. And I couldn't find a Starbucks and finally I saw this one coffee place and it said Grace Coffee. I was like, yeah, that feels good. Grace Coffee, that sounds awesome. So I, followed my little GPS to go to that one. And granted, there's, tons of places that I could have stopped to get coffee along the way. But that one just really was pulling me. I'm like, that is the one I'm supposed to go to. So I get off the highway and I drive to the spot where Grace Coffee is supposed to be. And it's literally a grassy lot. No store, no building, no coffee, and nowhere to get coffee on that exit. It was just like extremely rural. So I turn around and I get back on the freeway. And within minutes, I come up on horrible accident. There was a U-Haul truck. It was flipped upside down. The police, the ambulances hadn't even gotten there yet. There were people pulled over to help. And one person was literally still hanging upside down in their seatbelt, and the other person must have been on the ground. And I was like, oh my gosh. And there's just flood of feeling rushed over me like, wow, I could have been or would have been in that accident had I not gotten off for Grace Coffee. And I really just felt like that was a protection for me. So did I have a fear about it? No. Was I following my instinct, my intuition? Yes. And then the last story I want to tell you just happened this year, Christmas Eve, 2020. My son was visiting me for Christmas Eve. He's in college now, but when he comes home, he stays with his dad. He lives with his dad, and he was at my house for Christmas Eve dinner. And it was really rainy and windy out that night. And I said, like most good moms do once their kids start driving, is text me when you get home. Just let me know you made it home okay. And if you guys, you probably wouldn't know this about me, but I'm not a worrier, like when it comes to stuff like that. I might worry about other things, but I don't fret about those like simple everyday life kind of things. And so he left, and about 15 minutes later, he should be home. He didn't text me. I was like, oh, that's weird. So I call him, and he doesn't pick up, and I think, oh, maybe he's walking the dog. And I call him again and he doesn't pick up, and I'm like, oh God. And this just feeling hit me like something bad has happened. And it wasn't a fear, it was a knowing. He got in an accident. Next thing, within seconds, I hear an ambulance go by on the main highway behind my neighborhood. And in an instant, I knew it was my son. So I run to the car. I literally jump in my car and I start driving in the direction of the way that my son would go home to his dad's house. And within minutes, out on that main highway, I see these yellow lights. It was the ambulance lights. And I drive by, but the car is on the other side of the road. And I'm thinking, well, that's strange. That wouldn't be my son because he's going this way and this car was going this way. But I drove by and I saw literally like the top of the car was mushed in. It had rolled. And even at that point, I was just like, it doesn't even look like his car, but it was so damaged. But I just had this feeling, and it just was like, that's him. That's his car. So I turn around and I come back and I park on the other side. It was two lanes on each side. I run across the highway. It's like 11 o'clock at night. It's pouring down rain. And I said to the officer there, I said, hey, I think that's my son's car. I think that he's the one who, I think this is his car, and I think he's had this accident. And they asked me what my son's name was. And I told them, they're like, yes, ma'am, this is his car. And I wasn't surprised at all. I knew it. I knew it from the moment that he didn't answer the phone. I said, where is he? Is he alive? And they said he had a very bad head injury. His airbags did not deploy. When they put him in the ambulance, he was alive. So at that point, I'm again sort of in this shock, and I'm thinking, oh my God. And so part of my brain is saying, he could be dead right now. And this gut feeling was like, no, he's okay. Somehow he's okay. I know he's okay. And so I drove to MUSC, the emergency room. I had to park way in this building way over there. I get there, hey, my son's here. Is he alive? Is he okay? And they're like, yes, he is alive right now. And he's getting his CAT scan and all of that. So story with that is he had a miraculous recovery, a near-death experience. He happened to tell me that he blacked out as soon as the car started to roll, and he was in the death experience. And he's like, Mom, it's peaceful. It's, it's no cares in the world and whatnot. And so it was it was probably, as much as I was calm and like I knew that, in that moment when I knew that it was him, it wasn't fear. And that's my whole point of all three of these stories, is that if I hadn't known about the accident and driven to it, I wouldn't have found out about the accident probably until the next day. And it was every single time I've had one of these experiences, I'm just in this place of knowing. It's a knowing. And when you have a knowing, typically fear is not involved. Like, there might be chatter going up here with your head, but it's just this deep knowing. Now, I'd really love to hear from each of you to find out how you experience intuition, if you've had experiences like this where something pretty scary has happened. I'm not saying that some people don't get like a rush. If I imagine if I was in a dark alley and I was in danger, maybe the feeling would be run, and I would get this scared feeling so that I would have the adrenaline rush I need to protect myself. But in each of these situations, that rush of adrenaline wasn't going to keep me any safer or protect me or make my son survive. So I believe that you have that rush of adrenaline, and you're afraid, oftentimes that's not your intuition. That's just a projected fear. So, so I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. I'd love to hear your stories, and I hope that me sharing some of my stories with you will help when you're really trying to hone in on your developing your intuition. And if that's something you're interested in getting more information about or studying with me, you can either join my Facebook group, Modern Intuition, or you can reach out to me on my website, RebeccaTaylorshaw.com.